Hey everybody, welcome back to Whiteboard Finance. My name is Marco and I'm here to help you master your money and build your wealth. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the age-old question of should you pay off your mortgage early versus investing the difference. So the thought of having decades of debt in the form of a mortgage hanging over our heads may actually scare us, and this makes it a natural decision to want to pay this mortgage off as quickly as possible. But is this really the best financial move? So if you take a look at these two screenshots here, on Twitter, my poll had 528 votes asking this question, assuming a fixed rate mortgage at 3% for 30 years, and 75% of people voted that they would invest the difference. On Instagram, this poll right here got 3,005 votes with a similar question, and 76% of people voted that they would invest rather than pay off their mortgage early. So in this video, we're going to talk about the emotional side of this decision. We're going to talk about the mathematical side of this decision. We're going to talk about some of the pros and cons. And as always, I'm going to give my thoughts at the end of the video. Stay tuned. So the answer to this question is incredibly simple because it's math and numbers don't lie unless you're Enron. So if you can make a greater after-tax adjusted rate of return than the rate of your mortgage, then it makes all the sense in the world to invest rather than paying off the mortgage early. So if this is something that's earning you, let's call it 7% annually, and this is 2.5%, the rate of your mortgage, it makes all the sense in the world to choose this investment right here. The reason for that is because rates are at all-time lows, okay? Treasury bills are incredibly low right now. Interest rates are incredibly low. This makes lending or borrowing money incredibly cheap right now, and that's the reason why we've seen inflation in asset prices such as stocks and real estate at the time of this recording. So let's take a quick example and put some numbers to this. If you have a $300,000 mortgage at 2.5% over the course of 30 years, how much interest will you pay over the course of those 30 years? You can answer down below. Feel free to pause the video. I'm going to answer it right now. So the answer to this question is $126,731 in interest. Okay, that's just the cost of borrowing that capital to quote unquote get this $300,000 amount of money so you can buy your house. Now, if you put that same amount, that $300,000, into something that's earning 7%, like our example up here, you will have made over $1.9 million in interest with a total balance of $2.2 million. Do you see the difference right here between this number and that number? That is the opportunity cost of paying off the mortgage early. However, that's assuming a few things, so let's get into that in the next section. Okay, so some of you in that last example are probably thinking to yourself, yes, Marco, I understand compound interest. Yes, I understand prepaying it early versus investing, but who has $300,000 sitting around to invest on day zero, allowing it to compound for those 30 years, right? And that's a very good point, and I would agree with you. Not many people, right? So let's take a look at prepaying on a monthly basis versus investing. So let's look at the same example, $300,000 mortgage, 2.5% over 30 years. Now let's say this couple, this husband and wife, they both end up working some overtime, or they start selling some stuff, or they're just able to generate an extra $2,500 a month to prepay the mortgage early, or they can invest that $2,500 every month. So if they did this, they would save $29,085 off the interest of their loan, okay? Because they would have paid this down very quickly, actually in 7.42 years to be exact. Now, if they took that extra $2,500 at that 7% that we talked about, they would have made $126,794 in interest, and that amount, the total balance, would have grown to $290,587, okay? This example ends after 7.42 years because the loan would be paid off by then because of these extra payments that they're making, okay? So this balance, this $290,000, is $44,776 more than the loan balance would be at that point. So this is a wiser mathematical decision, and this is an apples to apples comparison. Make sense? Okay, so let's get into this next slide of the actual reality of these numbers, okay? So the reality is that 7% is just an average. That's typically what the stock market has returned in terms of annualized yield year over year for many, many, many decades, okay? It's anywhere from 7 to 10% per year, depending on what you're investing in. So that 7% is just an assumption. Some years the market's way up, some years the market's way down. You can catch the beginning of a bull market, you can catch the beginning of a bear market, right? Now, if we look at that 2.5%, remember that's the interest rate on our mortgage in this example, in this video, that is a risk-free, tax-free, guaranteed rate of return. Let me repeat that. By paying off this mortgage early, or any debt for that matter, that's what this picture is supposed to be. It's supposed to be eyeballs looking at all debt. Paying that 2.5% off is a risk-free, tax-free, guaranteed rate of return. So for example, if you have a credit card that has a 16% APY on it, annual percentage yield, meaning that that's what you're paying to borrow that money on the credit card, if you pay that off, you're making a guaranteed, a risk-free, tax-free rate of return. Makes sense? So once you understand this, it's gonna build for my pros and cons section, which we're gonna get into right now, and then finally my thoughts at the end of the video. Okay, so let's break this down logically into pros and cons and see if we have any more weight on one side or the other of this argument, okay? So let's go down the pros very quickly. So this, number one, is reducing the overall interest that you pay over the life of the mortgage. Remember in our previous example when we paid it off in 7.5 years instead of 30 years because we're putting down $2,500 a month extra, we're also paying less interest over the course of that loan. Number two is you free up your cash flow for other things in life, such as investing, travel, saving for a rainy day, et cetera, et cetera. It increases the amount of cash flow because you don't have your principal and interest anymore. You don't have that mortgage payment anymore. Number three is that you own your home. When you own your home, you are happy. It's peace of mind, okay? It's less stress. You don't have to make decisions or go into business endeavors or work overtime or do certain things because you own your own home, especially talking about what happened in last March when a lot of people became unemployed. And then finally, this increases your credit for 10 years. So it's not a huge bump in your credit, but it is reflected on the credit scores for 10 years, which is awesome. Now let's talk about some of the cons, okay? The first one is obviously low rates. Mathematically, it doesn't make sense to pay off your home right now. Number two is that you may lose some tax deductions. Now you have to itemize interest, but if you do that, you are able to write off the interest payments as taxes and reduce your taxable income that way. The third one is opportunity cost. This is a big one. This is probably the biggest one for me. Say for example, a good deal or an investment opportunity comes up and you're simply cash poor because you're taking every extra penny and using it to pay off the mortgage early instead of investing, right? So opportunity cost is huge. And then finally, you have equity in your home. Equity just means what your house is worth minus what you owe on it. So if you don't owe anything on it, all of your equity is buried in the walls of your house. You can access this with a HELOC or a home equity loan, things like that. However, for the most part, once you pay off your house, it's not like you have cash just sitting in the bank. It's buried in the walls of your house, figuratively and sometimes even literally. So let's, with all that being said, let's go into my thoughts of this video. Okay, so let's wrap up this video with my personal thoughts on this subject or this matter. And I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way about these 4 points that I do even before you clicked on watching this video. So personal finance is personal, duh. So some people want to grow their net worth and they know they can do that through investing, knock on wood, over time if those investments do pan out. However, other people value peace of mind. Some people can think more clearly when they don't have stress or a mortgage or debt hanging over them. Other people, they want to leverage up as much cheap fiat money as possible in the form of loans. And no one is wrong because it's personal. It's their personal decision. Someone may be mathematically wrong. The other person may be emotionally wrong, right? So the second one is building a strong foundation. Imagine having no debt. Imagine having no mortgage, no car payments, no credit card payments, no student loans, no nothing. You don't owe anybody jack crap, okay? That is building a strong foundation on which you can build on. So when you're building a skyscraper, you dig real deep, you build the base, the foundation, and then you build up. I'm not advising to do one thing or the other. I'm just saying that some people prefer starting their journey when they don't have debt. However, that brings me to point number 3, which is compound interest. The later you start investing in life, the shorter amount of time your money has to work for you. Albert Einstein, I believe, called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world or something like that. And if you want to look up a really cool story, Google the king and the grains of rice on the chessboard. I don't know how else to explain it. I'll probably leave it in the description below. It's a story about a king and a peasant. He gets paid in rice and he does it on a chessboard. It makes a lot more sense once you read the story. So compound interest allows your money to compound on itself and allow your dollars to multiply and kind of breed more dollars, which allows them to compound on each other, which makes you very wealthy over time. And then finally, this is how I'm gonna end the video because I feel like a lot of you feel this way, and I personally feel this way. I'm not rushing to do one or the other, but I'm just gonna let you know that I've never heard anyone in my entire life complain about having a paid off house. Man, I really wish I never paid off my house. Oh, I really wish I had a 30-year mortgage. You know, when do you hear that? Okay, you don't. So that tells you something. When you talk to older people that are more old school and maybe less risk averse, or more risk averse, excuse me, they're the ones that are saying that, hey, I love not having a paid off home. It allowed me to travel, you know, raise my kids and I have to work a lot, et cetera, et cetera. So just some food for thought and something to think about. As always, thank you for watching until the end of this video. If you like the video, share it with one friend, and also check out my school, Whiteboard Finance University. We're gonna have courses, a community chat room, live streams, Q&A with me, book of the month, all that good stuff. You're gonna be way smarter after you take that school. Thank you so much and have a prosperous day. Okay, here's a quick little drawing. Here's Jim. Jim is happy. He has no stress. Jim owns his home. He owns it outright. So here's Jim in 2008 when everything hit the fan. Wait, I own my home, no big deal. Here's Jim in March 2020 when everyone lost their job. Here's Jim. Oh, I own my home, no big deal. Here is the other person who owns 20 single family homes that barely cash flow because he's over leveraged to his gills and he thinks that his tenants are gonna pay him every single month like clockwork. Here's 2008. Oh, you dead. Oh, here's March 2020. Oh, you dead. So here comes Jim. He buys up this guy's property off Home HUD site for literally 70% off. And they all cash flow and rent for $1,300 a month, and they're all worth 3 times as much 12 years later. That's what happened, folks. That's what happened.